This daf is sponsored by David Grossman. Thank you for your sponsorship. If you would like to sponsor an Amar Daf, see the description box below to see how you can support this channel. We continue now at the top of Daf Amar Aleph and Meseches Bava Metzia. This is Bava Metzia Daf 25a. The Mishnah continues to list items which need to be announced. Shlosha matbeos zeh al gav zeh, 3 coins, one on top of the other. Krichos b'rishas hayachid, bundles of grain in rishas hayachid. V'kikara shel bal habayis, if you have loaves of a private individual. V'gizei tzemer, fleeces of wool, halakuchin mi beis ha'uman, which are taken from the craftsman. Kadei yayin v'kadei shemen, jugs of wine and jugs of oil. All of these items, harei elu chayiv lahachriz, all of these items, the person is obligated to announce. And the Gemara says, Taima de matzah peiros bekliu moos bekis. The reason why he has to announce the items is because he finds the fruits in the vessel, he finds the money in the pouch. Hakliu lefanav peiros, if it's a vessel and in front of the vessel is peiros. Or kisu lefanav moos, if it's a pouch and in front of the pouch is money, hareilu shalo, then he's able to keep the items. And the Gemara says, Tanino loha de tana rabban, and our Mishnah says the same thing as the following brisa. Matzah kliu lefanav peiros, if he finds a vessel and in front of it is produce, kisu lefanav mos, he finds a pouch and in front of it is money, hareilu shalo, he can keep those items. Miksasan bekliu, miksasan al gabe karka, if some of them are in the vessel and some of them are on the ground, miksasan bekisu, miksasan al gabe karka, some of them are in the pouch and some of them are on the ground, then chayiv lahachris, then he's obligated to announce the items. And Rashi explains, the point over here is that if the fruits, if the produce is inside the vessel, so then we assume that if the person is able to give the siman of the vessel, he gets the fruits as well. But if you have a vessel and then in front of the vessel is produce, and the point is that the produce belongs to the person who finds them. Even though somebody gives a siman on the vessel, he only gets the vessel. Even though the vessel goes to the person who has the siman, as he returns the vessel, but he can keep the fruits for himself. We don't just assume that they fell from this particular vessel. Now, if some of them are in the kli and some of them are in front of the kli, so already in that situation, then we say chayiv lahachriz, meaning hadavar mochiach dahanach dal gabe karka. Over there already it's clear that the ones that are on the ground, dahanachu, that they are all part of the ones that were in the vessel. They came from that vessel. You have to return them to the one who gives the siman of the vessel. The same would be true for the money in terms of the person who's giving the siman on the pouch. And the Gemara asks on this, Suraminu, we have a contradiction from the following. Braisa, matzah davar she'ein bo simin, bitzad davar sheyesh bo simin. If somebody finds something without a simin, next to something that has a simin, chayiv l'hachris, he has to announce it. Bo bal simin v'natalas shalo. If the person who gives the simin comes and takes what is his, zacha halo b'davar she'ein bo simin, he gets the item that does not have the simin. And Rashi explains, Hachi garsinan matzah davar she'ein bo simin b'tzad davar sheyesh bo simin. If he finds something without a simin next to something that has a simin, kigon mos lefnei kis, that's like the case we just had, money in front of the pouch, chayiv l'hachris ala kol, he has to announce everything. V'yinasnu hamos l'bala kis, and the person who takes the kiss does get to take the money. That's a contradiction to what we said before. And then the brisa finished, Ba'bal simin v'natal es shalo, if the person who gives the simin takes what is his, what that means to say is esakis, he takes the pouch, v'amar, and he says explicitly, ein hamos shali, he says the money is not mine, so then zocha lo b'mos, then the person who found it is able to keep the money, but again, otherwise we assume the money goes together with the pouch. And the Gemara answers, Amar Rav Zavid says, Lo kash, it's not difficult. Ha bekuva v'kist, in one case we're talking about a container with flax, and ha betzino piri, in the other case we're talking about a basket with produce. And Rashi explains, Hadikatani harelu shalo, that which we say, that he could keep the items in front of the vessel that we don't assume they are from the vessel, that's bekuva v'kisna, that's by a container with flax, gigis mutelas upishtan lefaneh. Let's say you have the container and the flax in front of it, devadai hai pishtan lav mikuva nafal. Certainly the flax did not come from the container. De'imi no nafal, because if it did come from the container, have a mishtayr, but there would be some that would remain in the container. V'hu adin lekisu lefanav mos. The same logic could be applied to a pouch with money in front, may high time for the same reason. V'hadikatani chayiv, and the one which says that you're chayiv to announce, meaning even the produce, let's say you're not allowed to keep, you have to give it back, that's betzino period, that would be by a basket and fruits. Da'avidi d'sharki v'nafli minei kulu, it's common that the entire thing falls out of the basket, and so therefore over there, you do have to assume that it comes from the basket. And the Gemara continues, Rapapa says, ha v'ha betzino period, we can say that both of them are talking about a basket with produce. V'lo kash, it's not difficult. Ha de shtayr b'midi, in one case we're talking where there's some produce that remains in the basket, again, that indicates it came from the basket. But if there's nothing that remains, that indicates it did not come from the basket. And Rashi explains, when we say that you're chayev to announce it, you're not allowed to keep the produce. That's if some of it remains in the basket. Then you can say that the ones that are outside of the basket probably came from the basket. But if nothing remained, so then you can assume it's not from the basket. Since most baskets have a rim that curve inside, if it actually came from that basket, so some would have remained, because the rim would have held some back. And the Gemara continues, if you want, I could say another answer. In both cases, we're talking where there was nothing remaining in the basket. It's not difficult. In one case, the opening of the basket is facing the fruits. That indicates that it came from the basket. In the other case, the mouth or the opening of the basket wasn't facing the fruits. That indicates it did not come from the basket. And the Gemara continues, if you want, I could say, in both cases, it's facing the fruits. The opening of the basket is facing the fruits. It's not difficult. In one case, there's a rim for the basket that would have held some back. And in the other case, there's no rim around the basket, so nothing would have been held back. In that case, already it indicates that it came from the basket. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. The Mishnah said, Tzibore peiros v'tzibore mos. If you have piles of produce, piles of money, again, you have to announce those. The Gemara says, Shamat mina, should we see from this that minyan have a siman, that the number is considered a siman? You'd have to identify the number of piles. And the Gemara says, no, Tani tzibor peiros. It could be that the proper gear says not piles of fruits, it's not piles of money, but a pile of fruits, so there's not a number. And so the Gemara says, if that's the case, Shamat mina makom have a siman. Then we should learn from the Mishnah that the location is obviously what is the siman. And the Gemara says, no, Tani tzibore peiros. It could be the proper girsa is piles of produce. The point is we don't know exactly what the proper girsa of the Mishnah is, so we don't know if the Mishnah is saying that the number is the siman or if the makom is the siman. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. The Mishnah said, Shlosha matbeos zal gavzeh, 3 coins, one on top of the other. That has to be announced. And the Gemara says, Amar Rav Yitzchak Migdalah, Rav Yitzchak from Migdal says, V'hu sha'asuin k'migdalin, the coins have to be arranged like a tower. The point is that the largest coin should be on the bottom, and then the smallest coin should be on the top, so that it looks like a tower. The Gemara continues, Tanya nami hachri, of a brisa like this as well, Masa mos mefuzaros, if he finds scattered coins, Hareilu shalo, he keeps them, Asuyin k'migdalin, but if it's like a tower, Chayv lahachers, then he has to announce it. V'eluhein asuyin k'migdalin, what does it mean that it's made like a tower? Shlosha matboin zal gavzeh, means you have 3 coins, one on top of the other. The Gemara says, Agufa Kasha, the Bryce is internally contradictory. Amrit Motza Mos Mefuzaros Hareilu Shalo. First you say that if it's scattered money, he can keep the money. Hameshal Chafi Shel Chufe, but that means to say that if it's partially overlapping, let's say the coins are not totally scattered, they're kind of overlapping one another, so Chayv L'Achros, it sounds like he'd be obligated to announce that. But Ema Seifa, but then look at the end of the Bryce. Asuin Kimigdolin Chayv L'Achros, it says if it's like a tower, only then he's obligated to announce it. Hameshal Chafi Shel Chufe, but if it's partially overlapping, Hareilu Shalo, then it sounds like he could keep it. So what happens in a situation where it's partially overlapping? And the Gemara says, the Tana means to say, Kol she'ein asuin k'migdolin mefuzarus karei. As long as it's not like a tower, that's considered scattered. Even if it's overlapping a little, that's still considered to be scattered, and he is allowed to keep it in that situation. And the Gemara continues, Amar Reb Chanina says, Lo shanu ela shel shlosha malachim, this halacha only applies if the 3 coins have 3 different kings on them. Aval shel melech echad, but if the 3 coins all have the same king, eino chayv lahachers, then he doesn't have to announce that. And the Gemara clarifies, Hey Chidami, what exactly is the case? Ida asuyin k'migdol, and if it's set up like a tower, afilo shel melech echad, so even if it's 1 king also, you should have to announce it, because that would be considered a simon. What difference does it make that it's 1 king? V'idei asuyin k'migdol, and if it's not like a tower, let's say it's scattered, so you have no siman. So afilo shel shlosha malachim nami lo. So even if it's 3 kings also, it's not stacked like a tower, and therefore the person should be able to keep it. And so the Gemara says, Ali itmar hachi itmar. Rather, if the statement was made, this is what was stated: Lo shanu ela shel melech echad ke'ein shlosha malachim. What we mean to say is, it's only true if the coins have 1 king, but it has to be similar to 3 kings. The point over here is that the coins have to be different in size. V'hechidami. So what would be the case? Da asuin k'migdalim. It means means to say that it's made like a tower. Revicha tasa, the largest one is on the bottom. Metzia ilave, then the mid-sized one is on top of that. Vezut ilave Metziah, and then the smallest one is on top of the mid-sized one. The amrina nanuche anchino. The point is, then we say the person purposely placed it in that fashion. Avol shel melech echad, but if it's all coins of one king, and what that means is the kulu ki adadi ninu, that they're all the same size. Aval gav de manchi adadi, even though they're placed one on top of the other. Hare elu shelo, still the person is allowed to keep it. Amor isramuye isramu v'hade hadadi nafel. We just say it just happened to be they fell together and they stacked one on top of the other. In that case, we do not say that the person has to announce it. But the Gemara continues with another point of view. Rabbi Yochanan says, "Afilu shel melech echad nami machers." Even if it's of one king, he still has to announce it. And the Gemara says, well, my machers, what exactly is going to be announced? Minyan, the number. So ma'ir yitlasa, so what difference is if it's three of them? Afilu trei nami, even two of them also. If you're already going by the number of coins, why does it have to be 3 coins? Why not 2 coins? And the Gemara says to that, Amar Ravina says, Tiva machers. He announced that he found coins in plural, so the minimum amount of coins is 2. So saying 2 would not actually prove anything. So saying 3, it has to be at least 3 coins. That would be a good siman. And Rashi explains, Afilu shel melech echad machers. Again, Rabbi Yochanan said, even if it's of one king, you announce it. Ho'elu matbeos havezu agavzu. Since the coins are one on top of the other, yesh kan siman, there is a siman over here. Delo esrami denafel haki. It doesn't just happen that it falls that way. Uparchina. But then the Gemara asked, my machers, what exactly is announced? Minyan, the number, meaning kach v'kach matbeos matzasi. Meaning what the Gemara is thinking is that the person announces, I found this number of coins. V'zeh ba v'nosan siman zu agavzu matzasim. And then this person comes and gives a siman and says, you found them one on top of the other. But then the Gemara ultimately says, Tiva machers, what's actually announced is coins, matbeos matzasi, I found coins, hilkach trei lav simonu, therefore 2 is not going to be a siman, demiot matbeos beis, because the minimum of coins is actually 2, and that's why only 3 can be a siman. And the Gemara continues, Boy Rabbi Yirmiyah asks the following question, Keshir mahu, what if the coins are arranged like a bracelet? Keshura ma, what if they're arranged in a straight line? Kechatsuva ma, what if they're arranged in a triangle? Kesula ma, what if they're arranged like a ladder? That means one is on top of the other, so it looks like steps. And the Gemara says, Pshot miyachada, we can answer at least one of these questions. The Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Rabba bar Avur. Rav Nachman says that Rabba bar Avur says, Kol she'ilu machnas la kesem beineim, if you'd be able to put a wood chip between them, v'nola mebasachas, and take them all at once, chayav lahachriz, then the person is obligated to announce it. That's essentially the same as a ladder. So you see that in that situation, the person is chayav to announce it. And the Gemara continues by Rav Ashi. Rav Ashi asks the following question, and we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Chaf Hey Amud Beis.